Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here, and today I wanted to share with you guys the top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Boss monsters of 2018. It's been a really long year and we've had a lot of really powerful boss monsters, some returning, some new, so I decided to rank them all before the year ends. And of course, in the video, I want to hear what you guys think, so let's hop right in. Number 10 is Invoked Mecha Boy. This is actually one of my personal favorite boss monsters. I have enjoyed using the Invoked deck for a while now, and Mecha Boy is kind of the go-to monster for them. It's a light monster, so you can always use Alistair and Invocation and tech it in any deck with a light engine, you know, Mech Knights, Blue Eyes, those types of things come to mind, artifacts for example. And Mecha Boy can negate anything actually. It can negate spells, traps, or monster effects, but you have to discard a card of the same type from your hand. In exchange though, it does banish the card, so that's very useful. Mecha Boy, I think, is actually a pretty balanced monster, unlike some of the other ones on this list. It only has 2,500 attack, so it can actually be swung over pretty easily, and it actually is a one-for-one trade when you negate the cards, so it's not just like a free negation per se, and the situational element does make it like not perfect in all situations. That said though, it is very easy to make multiples of it in a dedicated Invoked deck, and having it alongside protection from things like hand traps or back row make it a still pretty powerful boss monster and still pretty tough to deal with. Boss monster number 9 is Oddeyes Vortex Dragon. So not very popular anymore, this is more of an early year thing, but in Pendulum Magicians, this card was pretty insane. Because, you know, in addition to all the other crazy things that Pendulum Magicians were able to do, all the extra deck toolboxing that they had, Oddeyes Vortex Dragon was an extra layer of negation, disruption. It's got a really great effect. It's got 3,000 defense. It can negate things, it's like an Omni negate. So unlike Mecha Boy, you're getting a negation for free. You just have to shuffle something from your extra deck back in the deck, so that's very easy. When it gets summoned, it can actually bounce a card from the field, so you can get rid of your opponent's big threat monster, for example. And then it just sits there. And like 3,000 defense is a lot, especially in a deck where there are other threats to be dealt with. A lot of the strength of Pendulum Magicians was being able to put multiple negations on board, and having this guy here, where each turn that you don't deal with him, his effect resets, is really pretty problematic. Boss monster number 8 is Orbital Hydralander. Now this is actually a new one. It made its debut in Burning Abyss this year, and it's a very popular boss monster, mostly for any deck that mills a lot of cards to the graveyard. So you have to have 5 or more monsters in your grave to summon it, and they can't have the same name. And then you can mill the top 3 cards off your deck to pop a card in the field. It's a quick effect, which is actually really useful, and it's got good stats. 3,000 attack is always nice. This guy reminds me of Dark Arm Dragon actually, just because of its sort of similar summon mechanics, kind of like an Elemental Lord. And the Burning Abyss deck could always make great use of it because not only did it mill, with cards like Fairy Tale Snow, it's really easy to banish specific things from your graveyard to ensure that you don't have overlapping names, which kind of defeats the purpose of running Hydralander. It's a new card, so it's going to be interesting to see if it makes its way into other decks, but I think that it definitely will. It's really powerful, it's not limited to one, so I feel like it deserved a spot on the list. Number 7 is also another new one, and that is Doom King Balor. It's the new zombie boss monster. It actually came out in the Zombie Horde structure deck, and it's a pretty annoying one. So as long as there's a field spell in play, it can actually special summon itself back from the graveyard in defense position during each standby phase, so the recursion there is already very annoying. And it's got pretty beefy stats. It's going to be in defense position most of the time, so even though your opponent can run over it easily, the fact of the matter is it will keep coming back. And then whenever a zombie monster uses its effect, you get to either negate that effect or banish a card in the field or in the graveyard. This can get really oppressive when your opponent has something like, say, Zombie World on the field, because Zombie World makes everything a zombie, so that means that even when you're using your own monster's effects against Balor, it will always be able to trigger and banish something from your field, and that can get extremely disruptive, extremely annoying, and hard for your opponent to deal with. And when you combine it with any of the other zombie supports, things like, you know, Vampire Sucker getting a free draw, for example, each time that Balor resummons, or Vampire Foreline summoning from the hand and protecting it from dying in battle, things can get extremely nasty. So it's a really powerful card, and I thought it definitely deserved a spot on the list. Number 6 is Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. So this guy is like the definition of a boss monster to me. It's got extremely high attack points, and it's actually pretty easy to summon. You banish 2 dinosaurs from your graveyard, and then he's just there, and he's 35, and he's huge. You can destroy a monster on your field or in your hand, doesn't have to be a dinosaur either, and then flip everything your opponent controls face down. This is one of the most obnoxious, powerful disruptions that the game has, honestly, And not only that, when it attacks defense position monsters, it can send them to the grave, burn your opponent. This is the type of card that you don't really want to see in tandem with any other boss monsters, and unfortunately, most of the time that's kind of how it goes. You know, dinosaurs will be summoning this alongside, say, Laggy or Dolka, or alongside Thunder Dragons in that hybrid deck, or even just Overtex. And so this guy is like at his worst when he comes out at the times when you just don't have an easy way to stop it. You always have to try to bait out that negation, and it's really tough. And they can even summon like 2 of them at once. It's searchable. This card's insane. Card number 5 is Masterpiece. So rest in peace, this card is finally banned, but it did make a really big impact this year, so I thought that of course it needed to be included. It is the True Draco boss monster, and you can tribute summon it by tributing spells and traps. Yay, fun, balanced mechanics. So it is unaffected by card types that match what it was tribute summoned with. So if you tribute a spell and a trap, then it can't be affected by spell and trap cards. Generally, the optimal way of doing this is tributing a monster and then a spell or a monster and then a trap, so that way you get monster effect immunity, so you know you can't get hit by like Ghost Ogre, for example, and it can't be effect regulated. Then you can also like protect it from, say, Mirror Force Torrential Tribute, or you can protect it from like Raigeki, for instance. And the best part about this guy was that he was very easy to search with Dragonic Diagram. You could even summon him like in your opponent's turn. And to top off all of the immunities that he had 2950 attack. If Dragonic Diagram was in the field, he had 3250 and couldn't die in battle once. But the best thing is that it had a quick effect where you can just banish a continuous spell or trap from your grave and pop a card in the field. That type of disruption plus that much resilience just made this card absolutely ridiculous to deal with, and I'm really glad it got banned, but definitely made an impact this year, so it had to be part of the list. Card number 4 is Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. So this guy kind of made a bit of a comeback, or girl, I'm not actually sure which it is, I heard both things. But yeah, Blackluster Soldier is a monster that actually has been at 3 on the ban list for a little while now, and didn't see a whole lot of play, but then it managed to like sneak its way into Burning Abyss, because they ran, lots of light monsters, Fairy Tale Snow, and a few others that were getting teched in, so it was really easy to have a light and a dark monster. And poof, it's just a boss. It's actually really cool because it can banish any threat monster in the field, or it can go for game by just attacking twice. It's very good. And then later in the year with Thunder Dragons, it made sort of a second splash because Thunder Dragons are literally a mix of light and dark monsters. They even get effects when they're banished. So this becomes one of their really powerful trump cards. And this isn't even run like as a solo tech. Sometimes people run 2 or even 3 copies of the card. So surprisingly enough, even a few retro monsters can still make a really big impact in 2018. Boss monster number 3 is Thunder Dragon Colossus. So this is one of the newer ones. It's Thunder Dragon's ace in the hole, if you ask me. They've got Thunder Dragon Titan, but I feel like more people hate Colossus. While it's in the field, your opponent can't add cards from their deck to their hand, and we all know just how debilitating that can be for the majority of strategies in today's game. That's no Rhoda, that's no terraforming, that's none of your search cards work at all, and that's really debilitating for so many decks. It doesn't stop there though, because Thunder Dragon Colossus can also protect itself from dying in battle or dying from card effects just by banishing a Thunder monster from your graveyard. And conveniently enough, Thunder Dragons get effects when they're banished, so this actually triggers more effects while it's sitting on the field. What's even more scary about this is that Thunder Dragons can usually make 2 or even 3 copies of Colossus on the first turn, so even if you have a way to deal with 1, you usually are still completely locked out. It's very annoying, but that's the case, and so this thing has made a lot of impact just being out in the game for a month or 2, so I'm really excited to see what happens with Thunder Dragons next year if they stay dominant. I think with a card like this, there's almost no way they can't at least be a part of the conversation. Boss Monster 2, number 86, Heroic Champion Rongo Minion. Probably the most annoying boss monster on this list and the most controversial for sure. A lot of people want this thing banned. It's made by just using a bunch of warrior monsters. Not so bad. But based on the amount of materials it has, it gets more and more effects, gaining 1500 attack and defense, and being unaffected by other card effects, being able to nuke your opponent's board, and also stopping your opponent from summoning. This is kind of insane. Because this card is so easy to make, especially with the Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, to give it the extra materials it needs, to just never really lose its effects, it can get super duper out of hand, super duper fast. I honestly think that this is something that's probably on its way to the ban list soon, but we'll see. Either way though, it's a card that's been out for a really long time and only recently saw success, and that's kind of interesting to me that it took a few years for this card to really become an uber threat. but now that it's out, it's one of the hardest cards to deal with. It can completely lock you down, and the fact that decks can make it on their very first turn is extremely troubling, but the power of the card means it earns its spot as number 2 on the list. And card number 1 is Borel Sword Dragon. A new Borel monster is always a big deal. We've actually got one coming just next month, and we've already had Borel Dragon, and we saw what it could do. Borel Sword Dragon is the game ender. It can switch monsters from attack to defense, get an extra attack, and then when it attacks stuff, it gains the attack and like all the crazy nonsense. So this card can put obnoxious amounts of damage on the board on its own, which is kind of unbelievable to me. It's a Link 4, so it does take a bit of a high commitment to summon, but on the other hand, it only takes effect monsters, and so being very generic means that everybody's got a copy of this in their extra deck. It's such a great way to squeeze a win out of an otherwise really bad situation. You can effectively swing over any threat card. You can pretty much, I mean, your opponent can't even respond to the first effect. And I think that my favorite part about this is that you can actually see other decks having to kind of adapt to this. I mean, sometimes people have to summon their boss monsters like Thunder Dragon Colossus in defense position just so that Borel Sword Dragon can't get extra damage by it being an attack. And that's insane to me. So I definitely think that Borel Sword Dragon, I mean, its price, if nothing else, should tell you, has been probably the most powerful, influential boss monster of 2018. And that is it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know what other boss monsters that I maybe leave out of this list. There's of course runner-ups like ABC Dragon Buster, which should maybe be getting relevant again, but yeah, I wanna know. Leave it in the comments. I'll be reading and responding. And that is gonna be it. So I'll see you guys in the next video.